Hey, it's Robert Clickybeard, the host of the Commercial Landscaper podcast. These podcasts challenge you to grow as a leader, to stretch yourself beyond your comfort zone, and to 10x your company. I really encourage you to enjoy the show, share it with teammates, fellow business owners, and subscribe. That helps us grow our community. This podcast is sponsored by Bum Data, helping commercial landscapers turn labor data into smarter decisions with intuitive, actionable analytics. Check them out if you're ready to control your labor costs and boost your margins. When you mention Wilson T60, you'll get 1 month free subscription to check out this amazing software. Hi, this is Robert Clickybeard with the Commercial Landscaper podcast. Really excited today to be joined by Chris Rance. Chris, welcome to the show today.
Thanks for having me.
So, Chris, for our audience, please tell everybody all your background. Love to hear it.
From London originally. I've been at Landscape Workshop 2.5 years, and prior to landscaping, you might have to bleep this out, but I was in financial services for about 15 years.
You're recovering financial guru.
Guru is a stretch, but yeah, I do work in sales, so maybe we'll throw that in there. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So essentially, my wife's family in Alabama, and during COVID, we spent some time here and kind of got locked in here. And Landscape Workshop's been a tremendous success, and I was fortunate enough to connect with JT Price, and it's been a great fit. But I've been here for 2.5 years, growing the sales team and everything that looks and feels like organic sales revenue. So business development, sales, marketing,
cool,
all the fun things.
Yeah. I love it. Got to ask you this. I mean, first of all, I'll forgive you for being English. You know how I had to say that. For our audience, there's a little bit of rivalry between Scotland and England, so there's always a little
on one side of the border.
Yeah, true. But my other question is accents. I mean, how do they understand you, or how do you understand people from Alabama? I mean, that must be challenging.
What's funny is that talking to a Brit, I find myself talking a lot quicker,
right? More
monotone. And I feel like in Alabama, there is a lot more waves to it, and they talk a lot slower. So I think it's easier for me to understand. I certainly catch a lot of people kind of pausing and looking at me funny, and
Yeah, I know we're getting off topic here, but it's always a fun observation. Is that probably you and I both, when we're talking to somebody, you feel as though they're not actually listening to what you're saying; they're just listening to your accent. Is that a fair comment?
I think yes. And the funny story about pertaining to this podcast is that the inability for me to do in-person sales training is for that reason. I cannot walk into an apartment complex without someone just staring at me thinking this is not real life.
That's funny. So let's dive into sales. I mean, you talked about, bringing on some new sales. I mean, are you talking about sales, business development, account management, just sales throughout the whole spectrum?
I'm specifically talking about new contractual maintenance sales.
Okay.
Our focus and sweet spot is commercial landscaping and then contractual maintenance.
Talk me through, if you, for example, you're obviously bringing a lot of skills to the table and techniques. Does it also include hiring new sales professionals?
That's correct. Yeah.
So I'd love to hear your thoughts on, how do you find really good sales professionals? Do you find people that are coming with sales experience, or would you prefer them to be green and then train them up to they're just actually good with people?
I get a hard time from some of our sales reps now who come from a landscaping background, who tell me that I can't be credible without some landscaping experience. And then some of our more recent hires come from a background, whether it's Cintas or somewhere with a more high volume field service technique. So I think there are pros of both. I'd be happy to dive into both if that's
possible. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, let's do it.
I think if you come from a landscaping background, learning the sales piece can be hard, to be highly organized, use a CRM system. But that being said, I think your ability to have a really good qualified meeting, a qualified discovery meeting, understanding the pain points, pick out pain points that they didn't maybe see or weren't aware of, or better ways to do it, is really powerful. And I think you can build a lot of emotional intelligence and kind of understanding of the prospect needs by having that background. I'd say conversely, if you come from an industry where you're used to making 50 cold calls a day and you're in a big A market, there is enough commercial landscaping to go around. You can be tremendously successful building that pipeline and making sure that you have pipeline coverage. You're following up with enough people a day. You're making a new prospect every 5 minutes, or a LinkedIn connection. I mean, you're driving that funnel. Obviously, if you can do both of these things, you're going to be very successful.
Now, both of those aspects obviously involved data, CRM system preferably. I've seen very few companies really leverage that CRM and then would be able to track information, use the funnels, as you say. Talk me through that process of trying to, if somebody's coming into the company and they maybe not used to that CRM type system and all the automation that potentially comes along with it. I'd love to just hear more how you almost like make that habit.
That's right. So if you envision a sales funnel, at the highest level, we're looking for volume. We're looking for how many commercial properties can we fill up this funnel with? Can we qualify that? And I tend to lean on, I think it's something from the 70s, but it's called a BANT methodology, but it's kind of BANT, budget, authority, need, time. And it's super simple, and there's way more advanced techniques like the medics and all this stuff that's already there. But in landscaping, it is not a qualified lead if I don't know the budget that they're willing to spend. If I'm not talking to, A is authority. If I'm talking to a facilities manager, but they're not signing the contract, they're just giving me their opinion, I'm not talking to the decision maker. The emphasis and the sales training that we're looking to do, which we couple in with the CRM, is how many of these leads are qualified when we're booking a discovery meeting? Because it's super easy to list out commercial properties or all the things in my area, but driving them to a state where, hey, we've identified pain points, we're talking to the decision maker, they're willing to make a change, and being organized around the follow-up and the next steps, the CRM becomes really powerful. And it allows you to scale from being an okay salesperson on bits of paper and making quotes to being really dynamic and driving more volume.
Now, with your CRM, I mean, you're encouraging. I always remember listening to this sales coach guy called John Daly, and one of his big things was, you go meet the person in the office, you observe what their sports are, their pictures, their family, but then as soon as you leave that meeting, you're jumping in your car, you're taking all those notes within your mobile app into your CRM so that when you do follow up, you've all got those notes in there. And I think a lot of people struggle to do that. Talk me through how you train that in your team.
I think something that I've become aware of is you forget how many people are in field services trying to sell to that gatekeeper or decision maker every day. And I think, we walk in there and we think, oh, we're the best landscaper in town. They're going to remember me. And 3 months goes by and they don't have any kind of concept of who we are. That person's changed jobs. And I think taking notes and being memorable go hand in hand. But there's a LinkedIn influencer called Samantha McKenna. I'm not sure if you've heard of her, but she has a acronym. I think it's called Show Me You Know Me. So shout out to her if she's probably not watching this. But just having the ability to lead with something personalized to them opens the door to a way better conversation. You're not going in there with like, we're the best and we want to win your business. It's saying, hey, last time you told me about these pain points, is that still a problem for you? What's the motive for your business? And I think once you get these things aligned, your conversation can be really dynamic. And I think without that information, without storing it in a CRM, it's hard to win that business.
Yeah, 100%. So basically what you're saying is stalking people. But you're right, just with the use of AI, use of tools like LinkedIn, I mean, find out what their interests are, what their sports are, and if they have a family. It just, again, often leads into some really great conversations. And I love what you just said about personalization. I spoke to a marketing guru a couple of months ago, and I said, hey, what's some of the trends I should be looking at? And they said, just get highly personalized.
And I think if your ICP or persona that you're going after tends to be residential, it could be a handwritten note or a leave behind or a door hanger, and there are different ways to do it. But I think that's super, super powerful.
Talk me through that, the ICP, if you get that ideal customer profile and it's, if it's a female, whatever, 30 to 40, active, blah, blah, blah. One of the things I mention is, where do those people hang out? Is it gyms? Is it, country clubs? Yeah, do you join them just to sort of build relationships with that group of ICPs?
I would say in our industry, an ICP might be a CFO at a hospital. If hospitals are who we're going after, we know who that ICP is or who that decision maker is. That ICP might look completely different to a decision maker at an industrial site who's on the ground making a decision. And I think selling to those profiles is different. So the first step is identifying the business motive, how we're going to sell to them, what their business needs are, what their pain points are. And I think how you're networking with them is going to be very different. I think a lot of those CFOs at hospitals are going to be on LinkedIn. They're going to have a professional bio. They're going to be easy to find, but a lot harder to get in front of. There's going to be gatekeepers. You have to get through a lot of people to set up the meeting. And I think conversely, that person on the ground at the industrial site might be a lot easier to get a hold of if you show up at the door, but he's not online anywhere.
Yeah.
It's like a myth, So to your point, they might be hard to find, but having a concept of how to sell, what their pain points are, I think that conversation can be easier.
Let's take a minute to thank our sponsors. Urcher is a life brand born from grit, founded by Zach Strausser. The mission is clear: to raise $1 million for the trades by supporting vocational training across North America. Urcher makes tough, smart gear built for landscaping and snow professionals who work hard outside every day in all conditions. Their apparel puts safety first, helps crews look sharp, and honors the pride in their craft. Every purchase has purpose, fueling training programs and building a resilient workforce. Urcher isn't just workwear, it's a culture of respect, resilience, and results. When you contact Urcher, mention Wilson360 and Zach and his team will take well care of you. You mentioned earlier about trying to find that decision maker, and as you know all too well, some situations can be really challenging. Take for example a office building. The initial contact might be the engineer, and then it might be the assistant manager, and then it might be the manager, then it might be a regional person, or for example HOAs, like a minefield. There, you're talking about committee, property manager, committee member, maybe a landscape committee, and then you've got the board. So it's pretty challenging, and it might take you 3-6 months, a year to even find that true decision maker or that pool of decision makers. How do you train your new sales team in trying to navigate that?
A lot of sales reps will tell me during a one-on-one or a sales call, they were like, I am talking to the decision maker. In my mind, I'm thinking, I don't think you are. The person on the ground has told them, yeah, I'm the facilities manager. I'm going to make the decision here. And I think you having a version of a question that sounds like, who's signing the contract? Or who's the person who's actually going to put ink on this? Right. Allows you to differentiate. You're an influencer here with a really strong opinion, and you might have to pass it on to your regional or whoever, but you're not the one who's going to sign this. And I need to get buy-in from both of these people, because maybe there's a disconnect between these two people. Maybe they have different budgets. Maybe the HOA would like to spend more. They just haven't found the right group to have the right conversations with. And I think these things are how you do that and how quickly you can, ideally, you're inviting them both to the discovery. You're inviting both of these people to that presentation to discuss the contract, to get the feedback will help guide the decision.
I like what you just said also about, who signed the contract, because, that increases your odds tremendously.
Well, also, I think a lot of these people, not their ego gets in the way, but it's easy for them to say it's my decision because they think it is. It might well be, but I think it's just they might want to be change the landscaper. But if the owner lives in New York and he just wants the cheapest option,
right,
doesn't hold up.
Especially if you're wining and dining people. If you're taking them out to a sports game, if you're taking to a nice dinner, obviously that helps strokes their ego.
I think that's right. Are you asking me, or is that, yeah? I think that's a throwback to the financial services. Yeah, that's right.
Right. Moving on to, you mentioned in your intro, you're also responsible for the marketing piece. And that often is either done really badly in the companies because they almost feel as though it's tied together, but they could be totally two different personalities that manage both. Talk me through what that looks like in your mind, how you could potentially execute both of them, maybe through the same person. Because in my experience, the people that are maybe good at selling have no clue about marketing. They're just complaining that there's no leads coming in.
Yeah, I'll skip past the complaints. We'll go to the value of marketing. So the marketing department as a whole has a lot of different silos and places to add value, and it can be swag at a trade show event. It can be something that simple, but where we found the most success is the digital marketing piece. So prior to me joining, we had an SEO vendor. When we're a smaller company, we bought that in-house, and obviously investing in that means that we can move into a new market and perform pretty well. We have a strong engagement focused in our social media presence, and I think whether that's brand awareness, identity, validation from a new client, we're building that online. And I think a lot of younger generations are finding new vendors online. And I think our job is to stay ahead of that. So can we drive leads through ads or SEO? Yes. But what's really powerful is the metrics that we're able to build around that, because they're super transparent, and it allows us to say, hey, if the ROI on this investment here is 200%, we can apply more budget to it. That's a great conversation for me to go have with JT Pro. I think if marketing just looks fluffy and it's nice to have, and we're just mailing out cards, we don't really know how much revenue is derived from that. But I think if we can provide substance and analytics, we can really get powerful and drive more leads.
How do you, I suppose, measure that? Because there's a couple of things in my mind. Is, first of all, a lot of the owners don't necessarily have that, that marketing background, just for digital marketing. So they're sort of relying on, whether it be internal or external, they're relying on feedback from them. And also, as you know, the rules are always changing, whether it be Google and their analytics, and obviously having a good system, good CRM to be able to measure properly. I'd love to just hear how you navigate all that.
So the CRM before I joined was strictly for sales, and the CRM we use now allows us to track more of the client journey. We can see if they've clicked on an email link, if they've been on a website, if they clicked on a Google ad. Their persona will have timestamps with interactions. So if someone's hanging around your website for 2 minutes, that's a great time to give them a follow-up call. If they've sent an inbound form, we want a sales rep to go out and call them and see what the pain points are and their reason for change. The easy metrics to look at are obviously total volume, whether we're driving more people to the website. And I think if you think about that as a sales funnel, it's, well, they're marketing qualified, but are they in our footprint? Like if you're sending me leads from California, we can't service that. So then they have to be sales qualified. And I think we're driving the quality of leads and also the volume of leads. I think I've probably answered your question there without giving too much away. But essentially, yeah, we're tracking all of these things. And once we've identified the person and they're in our CRM, we're having a really good conversation.
I suppose where I was getting at is that you could generate as much digital marketing as you want, but unless you have a system, to track it, or I suppose take a step back, you almost have to set up your system so that you know what to measure.
Exactly right.
And then once you're measuring that, then you can make, I suppose, more fact-based decisions on where to invest your time and effort.
And I think with Google is great because we have a direct correlation to clicks and organic traffic. So we can say, due to this investment we've made, we're newly in the Virginia market. These are the amount of people that have clicked through because we're closer to the top of Google. More often than not, we're using big numbers, but I think we can distill it down to that ROI really quick. And I think, obviously we get tailwinds of having a bigger brand presence all the time.
AI, people are now using more Grok, Chat, GPT, all these other things to do the search online. Is there a shift away from Google? How does that then influence where you spend your time or put ads in place? How do you see that affecting things?
I would answer by saying ChatGPT and Google to some degree are starting to index things like Instagram posts and social engagement. And I saw an example yesterday, but it said 5 years ago we might Google show me a good restaurant in London. But now if you did that in ChatGPT, you could say show me a good restaurant in London with jazz music and a great atmosphere and the waiters are good. But essentially what we're doing is scrolling through social media posts to say, well, show me the post where this has existed. And by indexing these things with the search engine optimization and getting higher, you really want to make sure you're doing both things at the same time. So social's important, finding your buyers, getting that validation, coupled with ranking higher on your local presence and making sure people can find you in those local markets.
Yeah, it's interesting how it's evolving. We had our event here a couple of weeks ago, and AI was probably the most talked about subject there, and how it's going to change. Obviously, there's some people, is this going to replace our jobs? And I don't think so. I think it's probably going to enhance our jobs and maybe be more productive. So I think you just have to embrace it. So, Chris, we're nearly wrapping up here, but if you've got some companies that are, or even sole entrepreneurs on this podcast listening to you, what would be the maybe couple of biggest pieces of advice for companies who want to organically grow their business?
I think having a good understanding of who your ideal buyer is or persona is really important. I think if you can create processes which are repeatable and scalable, you can provide metrics to define, well, if you do these these things every day, you're going to be successful. If you don't make those 20 cold calls or 5 discovery meetings a week, you're not going to be successful. But being transparent with those metrics allows you to manage that salesperson and drive organic growth. I think the investments in marketing and social media are important. And I think that's the new world we're living in, right? I think there are probably a lot of different industries where sales report into marketing, and the marketing is responsible for driving a lead to them, and their job is to get out in the field and qualify that. And I think we're moving to that environment. So I think being cognizant of the chat GPTs and the Groks is important. So
Yeah.
they would be my two pieces. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, and this all touches on what we talked about earlier. If you're gathering all that data, be able to analyze it, figure out where you want to put your effort in. So, data seems to be coming up more and more. And how do you utilize that data? So, Chris, to wrap up here, tell me a little bit more about your future plans or Landscape Workshop and what they're all about, and how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah. So Landscape Workshop, we're based in Vestavia, just near Birmingham in Alabama. We are across the southeast, like SEC, kind of excluding Texas. We're far north of Virginia and down in Miami now. So we obviously have two levers for growth. One's organic growth, which is what I look at, and obviously we're big in the M&A side too. So hopefully people are hearing about us in the industry. I think we're growing pretty quick, and obviously be happy to speak to anyone in the industry or anyone who wants to learn more about sales or marketing or how we're doing that at Landscape Workshop.
Awesome. Chris, it's been a pleasure talking to you today. Good luck with your continued growth. Maybe I'll come down and see you sometime in Alabama. I've never been there, so pop down and see you.
Come on down. Yeah, I'll work on my accent in the meantime. Okay,
cool. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Robert.
All right, cheers. Bye-bye. That's a wrap for today's episode of the Commercial Landscaper podcast. I hope you're walking away with some great nuggets that you can immediately apply to your business, whether you're in leadership, operations, or you just want to show up every day with that Iron Man mindset. Remember, growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens with intentional moves, bold conversations, and surround yourself with the right people. If you found value today, subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with others. And again, don't forget to check out Wilson-360.com. We have digital courses from account management, operational excellence, leadership development, or some of the other coaching packages we offer. Anyway, huge shout out to our sponsors. Thank you very much. And I'll leave with this. Have a pure, dead, brilliant day.